Today, we're going to show you guys how to replace the woofers in any passive speakers, passive subwoofers, or any guitar or bass amplifier or cabinet. To do that, we're going to use the woofers from our RVP replacement woofer series, but this also applies for the RVW series along with any other replacement woofers you want to use. Just be sure to use the right size woofers with your PA speakers, subwoofers, or guitar or bass amplifiers or cabinets. You also want to be sure to match the impedance, power rating, and frequency response from the last woofer you were using. You can check for all of that in the manual for your PA speaker, subwoofer, or guitar or bass amplifier or cabinet. Now, if you're replacing the woofer on your guitar or bass amp or powered speaker, be sure to have them unplugged before you do so. And if you're replacing the woofer on your passive sub or speaker, be sure they're disconnected from any amp or mixer. So first, we'll go over how to replace the woofer in your passive PA speaker. You'll want to start by removing the grille on the front of your speaker to reveal the woofer by unscrewing the screws on the front of the grille with a screwdriver or a drill. Now, the grille may be a bit hard to take off at first, so you'll want to use a flathead screwdriver or butter knife to help pry the grille off. Next, you'll want to remove the woofer itself, again by using a drill or screwdriver to remove the screws, and then carefully take the woofer out of the enclosure to reveal its cables. Now, some woofers may be soldered onto the speaker wires on the inside. If so, you can carefully clip off the ends and strip the cable to reveal the bare wires to connect your new woofer. Next, you can unscrew the positive and negative terminals on the new woofer and twist the bare wires on the speaker wires we just cut so we can feed them through the terminals on our woofer with the positive wire going into the positive terminal. Screw the terminal back up to hold that wire in place. Then we're going to do the same exact thing with the negative wire going into the negative terminal, and then close the terminal back up to hold that wire. Now, some speaker wires may be different colors, so make sure you always know which one is the positive wire and which one is the negative wire. If you're unsure, you can always use an oscilloscope to find out which one is which. After we've done that, we can screw the woofer back onto the enclosure by lining up the screw holes on the woofer to the holes on the enclosure itself. Now, it's okay if the logo on the woofer isn't symmetrical when you put it back in, as long as the screw holes match and fit perfectly. However, if you do want to have the logo nice and straight, you can always make new screw holes when you're putting the woofer back into your enclosure. In either scenario, you'll take the screws from your last woofer and place them into the holes of your new woofer. Then we can realign the grille back onto the speaker, screw the screws back in to hold the grille in place, and now we're all set to use our speaker. Now, the process is going to be the exact same to replace the woofer on our sub. Start by removing the grille to reveal the woofer itself. Carefully lift it up so we can see the speaker wires attached to it. Again, the wires will be soldered onto the woofer, so we can just clip them off. Strip the wire just a little bit to reveal the bare wire. Unscrew the positive and negative terminals on the new woofer. Twist the bare wire on the speaker wire so we can feed them through those terminals, with the positive wire going into the positive terminal and the negative wire going into the negative terminal. Then close the terminals to hold the wires in place. Align the screw holes on your new woofer to the screw holes on the enclosure. Screw the woofer back into the enclosure. Realign your grille and use the screws to hold the grille in place. And now you're all set to use your subwoofer. Now, the process to replace your woofer in your guitar or bass amplifier or cabinet is very similar, except we're going to be replacing both speakers that we have in our cabinet here. This cabinet in particular doesn't have a grille on top of it, but to remove it, we would do the exact same process. Then we're going to replace the woofers like we did before by unscrewing the screws that hold them in, and then carefully lifting the woofers out of the cabinet. Now, this amp in particular uses spade connectors to connect the speaker wires to the woofers. So if you want to keep the spade connectors on there, you can grab some spare speaker wire, strip the end so you have plenty of wire to wrap around the connectors themselves, cover the coiled wires with some electrical tape so that we don't lose any connection, and then connect the other ends into the terminals on your new woofers. Alternatively, you could cut the ends of the speaker wires with the spade connectors on them, strip the cable to reveal the bare wires, and then connect them to the terminals on your new woofers. Now, when wiring the woofers back up to your guitar or bass amp or cabinet, just be sure to follow the original wiring from your last woofer setup. So for example, if you have two wires for the positive and negative terminals for that one woofer, you'll want to wire them the same way for your new woofer, with both positive wires going into the positive terminal and both negative wires going into the negative terminal. You can do that by coiling extra speaker wire to your connectors like we showed you before, or cutting off the spade connectors to add the wires to your terminals. So now we can line up our newly connected woofers to the screw holes on our cabinet and screw the woofers in to hold them in place. Now we're all set to use our guitar or bass amplifier or cabinet with our new woofers. So hopefully this showed you guys how easy it is to replace the woofers in your PA speakers, passive subwoofers, or guitar or bass amplifiers or cabinets. But of course, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to reach out to our customer support team through phone or email. We'll see you guys next time.